We like to teach the standard Greenland roll first. In this roll, you end up laying on the back deck. It is also known as a sweep roll or a back deck roll. Most people find it the easiest to learn. The roll is a coiled to an uncoiled roll. It's a rotated tuck to fully opening and lying on the surface of the water. It can be done slowly, so if you make a mistake, you have time to correct it and still complete the roll. If you can remember a few key components, while it may not be bomb-proof, at least it gives you a good platform to recover and you can continue to improve your technique. The standard Greenland roll is the simplest roll in the family of aft finishing rolls. And it is the most practical one to use in a real situation. Like all the Greenland style rolls, it relies much more on what the body is doing than what the paddle does. So we like to teach the body motion first. If you can learn to use your core muscles right from the start, then your standard roll will be much more reliable. If you want to, you'll be able to move on to more advanced rolls, like the hand roll, which all use the same body motion. When we teach the standard Greenland roll, we start on the safety of the hard ground. It's a great idea to practice the roll on land first. This removes the complications like the water, the kayak, and the paddle. The land drills also help create muscle memory. We will look at the recovery of the roll first.
Drive into my hand with your leg.
When you try this, rotate in your tuck as much as you can before you capsize. Concentrate on getting your shoulders as flat as possible on the surface. When you recover, put your head back and drive up your water leg and hip. You should get the feeling of driving the kayak off you while you drive up with the bottom leg. You'll need to use your stomach muscles to lift your body onto the back deck. Don't just watch us, have a go.
Let's have the hands very neutral here. Yep, good. And really try to face them with the shoulders.
Okay. Remember, we're trying to get our shoulders flat on the ground, so we're floating when we're on the water.
Shoulders. Very good. Holding your hands here. I want you to put energy through my hand as you sweep to the back deck. Good, good, good.
Once you have the motion, add the kayak, but not the water. Most people make the same mistakes in the water as they do on land, so this is a great opportunity to correct any errors while keeping dry. It can be hard to get your shoulders flat on the ground. Try to drop your leading shoulder down, the one that recovers to the kayak first, and lift up with your trailing shoulder. Concentrate on twisting from the base of your spine and up through your ribs. Notice when I do it right, both my shoulders sweep along the ground and lift together onto the kayak.
Sweeping back.
Once you've got the hang of the land drills, you can move to the water. If the thought of being upside down doesn't worry you, then you're one of the lucky ones. But if being upside down makes you nervous, then it's a good idea to try to diffuse that before trying to roll. Overcoming fear is a big part of learning how to roll. Fear is very natural. We all have it. It's an instinct. The body's natural reaction to fear is to close into a fetal position, which is counterproductive for rolling, especially the layback roll, where your body becomes very open and vulnerable. So just try and relax and take your time, and remember you have plenty of air, so just try to relax and enjoy the experience. So if just getting your face wet makes you anxious and nervous, and you can't really think and focus, then try putting on a mask, hanging upside down, just looking around. Then when you've held your breath as long as you can, even if it's only for 1 second, then either have a friend pull you back up or just do a wet exit. You'll slowly realize how much time you have, which direction is up, and it just diffuses the fear. Instead of ignoring it and pushing it off to the side, just meet it, deal with it, and move on. When you first try rolling, make things as comfortable as possible for yourself. Practice in warm, sheltered water or a pool to start with, and make sure you dress warmly. If you get disoriented, then wearing a mask or goggles to roll can help you to understand what you need to do. We really recommend finding someone to stand in the water and help you, so you can reinforce good muscle memory and don't get afraid. You're much more likely to relax and open up if you're not worried about failing. There is no replacement for a good instructor. But if you don't have access to an instructor, it's best if you can find a friend who will work with you and stand in the water and help you to recover if necessary.
Thank you.
If you can learn to enjoy being in the water, then you'll find rolling a lot easier. When you've made friends with the water, it's time to get in your kayak. Remember, a good roll relies on correct body motion, not the paddle. So we give our students an Avatok to practice with, which is a Greenlandic hunting float. You could also use a PFD or a large paddle float. This is a great way to hardwire all the body motions that you have learned on land without having to worry about the paddle. The same principles apply as on land. We still look at the recovery first. Remember, keep your shoulders parallel to the water so that you float. If you have a deep boat or a heavy upper body, your head may be underwater. To recover, drive with your water leg. Drop your head back and lift onto the back deck using your stomach muscles, keeping your shoulders horizontal. Try to put as little pressure as possible on the Avatok.
And then from there, dropping the head, feeling the gunnel as you come to the center line.
Start by just sliding from the back deck into the water and back. Open your arms out like a T and slide into the water. Drop your head back. Good. And just hang out here for a minute. And then use this hand to push away from the kayak so you really get out perpendicular. And breathe. So this is floating on the water, and you want to come back here before you go back to the kayak, okay? How's it feel, Sonia?
Cheers, it's fine.
Good. Okay, so feel like the bottom leg, you have some pressure there?
Yep.
No pressure on the top leg?
No.
Now go to the back deck and recover. Drop your head back, lift your chin. Excellent. Once you feel comfortable returning to the back deck, you have the last part of the roll. Now we want to add the beginning of the recovery, which starts with the roller tucked underneath the kayak. To get into the tuck, begin by taking your back hand, touching the Avatok and tucking slightly, and then returning to floating on the water. The next time, tuck deeper. As you become more confident that you can return to floating on the water, tuck all the way to the gunnel into a fully capsized position. As you return to floating on the water, you're now experiencing the middle section of the roll. Get that rotation in the ribs, good, and return to the back deck. Awesome. Notice how Sonia gets into the floating on her back position by laying her left arm flat on the water. Sonia is doing well, but on this occasion she makes a common mistake. She doesn't rotate her shoulders, but tries to go straight to the back deck without floating on the surface of the water first. You can see how this causes her shoulders to knife. Her left shoulder is on the kayak and her right shoulder is sinking. This causes her top leg to engage, pulling the kayak back on top of her. Good, get your head back. Good. Just hang out there for a minute, let me get you sorted. So get your head back and push away from the kayak. Feel how here you're floating?
Yeah.
Good. So you want to come back to this position with two shoulders back. When Sonia resists the urge to rush to the back deck and gets her shoulders parallel to the water, she succeeds easily. Good. Recover to the back deck. Excellent. Good. When you're ready to go for the paddle, you have three options. You can either do a balance brace, sculling for support, or just go for the roll. If you're light and flexible and not really sure what to do with the paddle, I would suggest the balance brace first. If you have a good sense of your blade angle and can float a bit, try sculling for support first. If you're not that flexible but you're really strong, just go for the roll. In this DVD, we will show you how to do the roll first. If you are struggling with the roll, then try the balance brace or sculling for support. Everyone learns differently. That's why we've included these sections. When you've mastered recovering with an avatak or float, then you are well on your way to a roll. Now you need to use the same body motion as with the avatak, but add a sweep with your paddle. We add the paddle to the collarbone, which enables the core muscles to have a long lever. The aim is to sweep the paddle along the surface of the water with a slightly climbing blade angle. We can split the roll up into three parts. In your setup, tuck tightly and capsize. In the middle section, move your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder and sweep. To recover, use your abdominal muscles to move your body to the back deck. The standard Greenland roll is an extended blade technique. So you extend the blade and bring it to the gunnel and then tuck for setup. The end position is each hand to its own shoulder and the head on the back deck. Yeah, good. Like the avatak, we teach the recovery of the roll first. Using the motion of your abdominal muscles to get onto the back deck should feel familiar. Good. So the first thing we're going to do is just have you slide in the water. I'll be holding your shoulders a little bit. And you're going to get that floating on the water feeling, and then you're just going to use your abdominal muscles and bring yourself to the back deck. And you're just going to feel how the paddle helps you with that leverage. Okay? So two hands, yep, and go right here. The thumb can go around the paddle. And then just bring both hands right up to the shoulders. Good, and then lay onto the back deck. Good. Slide into the water and rotate. Excellent, Sonia, that's beautiful. And keep the elbows tucked in and return to the back deck. Good. Feel how the paddle helped you?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Although your paddle provides some help, remember to lift using your core muscles rather than pushing down too much on the paddle. To get from here to the back deck of the kayak, I'm going to arch a lot and keep my shoulders parallel to the surface of the water.
She's going to engage her abdominal muscles, flex them, and raise the entire core.
Imagine a piece of string pulling up at your belly button as you recover to the back deck. Raise your chin. Try to lift both shoulders together. And of course, head out of the water last. To recap the recovery, rotate onto your back as much as possible to avoid your shoulders from knifing. Lift your upper body onto your back deck using your abdominal muscles. And as always, head out of the water last.
Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last.
The middle part of the roll is where you go from being fully capsized to floating on your back on the surface of the water. We practiced this motion with the Avatok. The only difference is the paddle. Remember, we're trying to sweep the blade along the surface of the water to give us lift. The key to getting your paddle on the surface at the correct angle is the position of your hands relative to your shoulders. So you've got the paddle in your hands now, and you've got two hands. You have a pivot hand and a sweep hand. Think about your kayak like a clock. 12 o'clock at the bow and 6 o'clock at the stern. The pivot hand acts like the center of the clock, and the paddle moves around that pivot hand. So when you start your sweep, your pivot hand stays on the pivot shoulder, but your body and your sweep hand start at 12 o'clock and move through the numbers of 1, 2, and 3. You're going to finish somewhere around the 3 or 4 o'clock position with your body laying on the back deck. It's important not to sweep past 4 o'clock because then you lose your support. So once you are in your capsized position, the first thing you want to do is bring your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder. Next, move your sweep shoulder upward toward the surface to your sweep hand. While you're moving through your sweep, the pivot hand stays there at the pivot shoulder. The sweep hand moves slowly around the pivot hand, staying close to the surface of the water. It moves through 90 degrees while you rotate and uncoil your body out of the tuck. Practice this by capsizing from the same side. Pivot hand to the pivot shoulder. Show me where it goes. Good. Now lay onto the back deck and slide into the water. All right, take a breath, and we're going to tuck. Good. Nice. Good. And sweep back. Excellent. Beautiful. I like that a lot. As you go into your tuck, your body and head should be facing upwards, close to the kayak. Your hands will be a little bit away from your shoulders. Concentrate on bringing the pivot hand to the pivot shoulder before you sweep back. The more tucked you are, the closer your hands will be to your shoulders already. You may need to tuck more to raise your shoulders to your hands. Keeping your pivot hand close to your pivot shoulder is so important because it keeps your blade on the surface at the right angle. So in this capsized position, the paddle's still near the gunnel. I'm going to bring my pivot hand to my pivot shoulder and then drive my pivot shoulder back so that my shoulders are parallel to the surface of the water. Then I'm going to drive with my water leg. My sweep hand comes to the sweep shoulder, and then I use my abdominal muscles to get onto the back deck of the kayak. Remember to drive up with your water leg and engage your abdominal muscles as you start to sweep. You can see here that the lower leg starts driving up very early in the roll, and the kayak is gradually turned over throughout the whole roll. The main point of this middle section of the roll is to concentrate on what you're doing with your pivot and sweep hands. Start in a rotated tuck, facing upwards with your shoulders parallel to the water. Move your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder and keep it there. Move your sweep shoulder to your sweep hand. Sweep and drive with your leg. When that feels good, all that is left is to set up on the opposite side and fully capsize.
You hear people say that the first half of the roll is the easy part and the second half is hard. But if you have a good setup, the second half can be easy too.
To set up the roll, we hold the paddle at one end, shoulders width apart. Put the paddle alongside the gunnel and rotate your wrist down so the palms and paddle face the gunnel. Pin the paddle tightly to the gunnel. Tuck your head and body forwards and rotate your upper body towards your paddle. When you're going into your setup position, this isn't rotated good enough. Think about really rotating, getting your shoulders down the center line, and then just tuck for your capsize. The more rotation you get, and the more tuck you get, the more open you can get at your finish. And uncoil. As you capsize, think about chasing your paddle and trying to get your head as near as possible to the side of your kayak. Hold your tuck until you are fully upside down and your paddle floats on the surface. Then you are ready to initiate the sweep. Take a moment to recognize that it's the same position you were in when you capsized from the other side. Once you are fully capsized, open your wrists and get the paddle floating on the surface and hold it in a relaxed grip. Bring your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder, drive with your leg, and sweep. The key points of the setup are: hold your paddle palms down against the side of the kayak. Rotate and tuck. Rotate palms upward and let your paddle float on the surface. And wait until you are fully capsized before sweeping. To summarize the entire roll, remember to take your time and relax. Get into a tightly rotated tuck. Capsize and let the paddle float. Move your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder. Sweep and drive with your water leg. Uncoil your body and move to the floating on your back position. Finish by using your core to move your body onto the back deck of your kayak. And as always, head out of the water last.
Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last.
Hopefully, if you have followed the steps, you will now have your roll. If not, don't worry. See our troubleshooting section, which comes next, or watch the chapters on bounce brace and sculling for support. You might find it easier to learn one or both of these first, and progress to the standard roll from there.
When you're first learning to roll, you're going to hit it sometimes and other times you aren't. It's just the way it is. We call that visiting. And that's okay. It's good to visit before you live there. But we've included this troubleshooting section to help you make it more reliable so that you'll be able to pinpoint exactly what you're doing wrong.
Many people are so nervous about what they're going to do when they get underwater that they don't take the time to make sure they're properly set up. If your paddle is ending up on the wrong side of the kayak when you capsize, make sure you pin it tightly to the gunnel.
So if you take your back hand and just hold it out there and pin this in here, you can do that pin.
Okay.
If If you're getting stuck on your side when you try to capsize, then it's probably because you're not tucking and rotating enough. Making yourself more streamlined allows you to fully capsize quicker. Another very common error is rushing to sweep before your paddle is in the correct position. This often leads to the paddle not being on the surface and diving. It can help to count to 3 when you're fully capsized. Spend a moment upside down. Enjoy the gift of stillness the ocean offers. Wait until your hands feel the surface, and move your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder before you sweep. You can always ask a friend to tap on your kayak when you are in the correct position to sweep. It's really important to rotate onto your back as you come out of your tuck, so your head and body are out to the side of the kayak and as close to the surface of the water as possible. Aim to be looking upwards with your shoulders parallel to the water. This allows the leg drive to be effective. If you don't rotate and tuck, when you try to recover, your shoulders will be knifing instead of floating, and your paddle will dive. Your leg drive won't be as effective, and the kayak won't turn over. It's a bit like a golfer trying to hit a ball with no wind-up. Compare good and bad rotation in these shots. When I rotate, my shoulders are parallel to the center line of the kayak. As I capsize, I'm tucking as tightly as possible, trying to get my head near the side of the kayak. My body is now in a tightly rotated tuck, ready to open up onto my back, drive my water leg, sweep, and recover. A similar problem is not holding your tuck underwater. If you don't maintain your tuck, your body drops away from the kayak and your paddle sinks out of the setup position. If this kayaker tried to sweep from here, her paddle would dive and she'd fail. In this clip, Andrea doesn't hold her tuck and her blade is deep with a diving angle, instead of floating on the surface where it should be. But she feels this and gets into the floating on her back position, adjusts her blade angle to climb aggressively and comes up, this time. If she held her tuck longer, she wouldn't have to compensate for the diving blade and her roll would be much more solid. Bringing your pivot hand to your pivot shoulder before sweeping sets the correct blade angle. And keeping your pivot hand near your pivot shoulder as you sweep keeps this correct blade angle. We can see what happens here when Sonia raises her pivot hand away from her shoulder. This causes the blade to dive.
Pivot hand.
The farther your pivot hand is away from the pivot shoulder, the less lift you will get from your sweep, and eventually you'll have a diving angle.
The pivot hand, bring that pivot hand up to your shoulder, sets the blade angle. Put the pivot hand down. See how it changes the blade angle? Bring it back up. So the pivot hand needs to be set in place before the sweep hand sweeps.
If you're having trouble trying to figure out where your paddle is meant to go when you're underwater, do a dry run while you're upright.
You're going to capsize in that direction. You're going to feel me move the paddle like this.
Yeah.
Bring that pivot hand up to the pivot shoulder. Good. And then the sweep hand to the sweep shoulder as you lay back. Don't lose the pivot hand though. Okay. Good.
When Sonia keeps her pivot hand by her pivot shoulder, She succeeds easily. Another very common reason for failing is pulling down on the paddle, rather than sweeping across the surface of the water. See how your elbow's out here?
Yeah.
Bring the elbow to your side and bring this up under your chin. Some people like to tap the water with their front blade to make sure it's flat and on the surface. If you do this, resist the temptation to then pull down on your blade during the roll. Recognize that the direction you tap is not the direction you sweep. The pull is downward, but the sweep is outward. As soon as you pull down on your sweep hand, the paddle sinks, pulling your body underwater. In contrast, the paddle practically skims the surface if you do it correctly. Notice right here in my setup position, I'm letting the paddle float. I'm not pulling down on my sweep hand. All the way through the roll, I don't need to pull on my sweep hand, I just need to sweep. Sonia is not trusting that merely sweeping will get her to upright, and she pulls down on her paddle for mid-sweep. As she pulls down, she starts to sink, and then tries to rush to the back deck instead of continuing to sweep. If the sweep is short and you only sweep to here, you're missing out on half of your sweep.
Okay.
So it's really important to make sure the sweep hand sweeps all the way up so the paddle's just right under the chin. If you are applying too much pressure to the paddle, then go back to the Avatak and focus on using your abdominal muscles and leaving your head back. Try to put as little pressure as possible on the Avatak and take some of the air out of it as you get better. If you have to go back to using the Avatak several times, that's fine. The foundation will become more deeply ingrained. When Sonia continues sweeping her paddle out to 90 degrees, moves her sweeping shoulder towards the surface and visits the back float, she succeeds. Good. Nice. When you're learning to roll, there's a lot to remember. But don't forget the first rule, move the kayak first. Remember that to do this, we drive with our lower leg, not both legs. Here, Mary isn't driving with her lower leg, so the kayak doesn't turn. Mary's upper body is doing all the right things. Her pivot hand and sweep hand are moving correctly. Her head is back, but the kayak is not moving, so she's not using any leg drive. Don't forget to drive up with this leg. When Mary's upper body position is this good, her lower leg should automatically be driving upwards to some degree to start the turn of the kayak, even if she forgets to do it consciously. So she must be closing her hip joint slightly, usually due to fear. All Mary needs to do to succeed is to open her hip, which will free up her leg to drive. If the leg drive is confusing you, have someone hold your kayak and practice driving up with your lower or water leg. Or you can practice using the bow of a friend's kayak. If you're driving with the wrong leg, then try taking the top leg off the foot pegs before rolling. That way you'll have to drive up with the lower leg. Here, Turner helps Mary to relax and realize she can float on the water.
So I want you to breathe and relax. Just take a breath in and a breath out.
And after that, she succeeds.
Good, good.
If your hands are in the correct position, but your blade is diving near the end of the roll, then this may be due to over-rotating your wrists. Mary has very flexible wrists and tilts them too far back at the end of this roll, causing her blade to dive. If you have any pressure on the paddle, then this can make you fail. I also have a tendency to make this mistake, although I usually get away with it because I have very little pressure on the paddle.
And so if she overbends her wrist, the angle of the blade, it's diving with this edge, the top edge. So she's got to keep her wrist really straight to have just a climbing edge on the surface of the water.
To fix this, concentrate on keeping your wrist straight. Imagine you have a stick taped to the back of your hand and your forearm so you can't bend it.
Nice. Excellent. Good. My body's being floated in the kayak.
Throughout this DVD, we've stressed the importance of rotating onto your back before recovering to the kayak, so you can use your body's natural ability to float, which is key in the roll. Remember?
I lift one shoulder.
It's all very well in theory, but when you're rolling for real, many people miss this stage
Establish the shoulders.
and rush to the back deck.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. No. Sorry.
So this is a common error some folks make. They lead with their head, which stalls the kayak. You can see the kayak stopped moving in its upright position, and I can't get back on it this way. If I were in the water, it would just capsize on top of me, and my spine is curved this way. To fix this, I want to slide back into the water, arch my back, curl my spine this way, and then use my abdominal muscles to get onto the back deck.
So you came back to here instead of coming back to get that shoulder out a little bit more? Yeah, let go of that shoulder and rotate it. There, that's where I want you to come back to. Not to the kayak up here, okay? Do you feel the difference here at your shoulder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rushing to the back deck can happen as a result of any of the other errors.
Keep sweeping, keep sweeping. Right onto the back.
In rolling, once you start to make a mistake, there is a tendency for a snowball effect. Once the sweep hand begins to sink or dive, the paddler starts to pull down even more on the sweeping hand and lifts the head towards the kayak, ultimately fully engaging the wrong leg and sabotaging their roll. So the key is composure, and remember our mantra.
Move the kayak first. Head out of the water last.
Nice, good. Good. Really hold that pin. Capsize. Excellent, Sonia, really good. So this is going to be the grip. Like this, she's holding mid-blade just over the loom. Try to really get your palm on there and control it. Okay. So it goes to here, don't let it, your palm open. Okay. Hand here now. Yep, and that hand here. See if that helps you with.
When doing the extended blade position with a Euro blade that's feathered, you need to establish the correct blade angle. So lay on your back deck and find the climbing blade angle, and then grip your pivot hand in that position. So when you go to set up, tuck and capsize, and when you bring your pivot hand into position, your blade will be in the correct angle. Capsize. Once you get your standard roll in extended position, then you start moving your hands 1 inch at a time. Get it? You're successful? Move another inch. And you keep doing that till you're all the way to the center of your paddle in regular paddling position. The roll will ultimately be the same, you're just using less of a lever. And then if you get into a situation where you want more of a lever, your hands will naturally move back into the extended position. Good.
So you have your standard roll. What next? Well, let's go to the other side. It's important to mirror what you have already learned from one roll to the other side as quickly as possible. So that you don't become a one-sided roller. After all, that's not the point.
You could also try some of the aft finishing variations. Each one has a different element that will help drive home the standard roll, and you'll become a better roller.
For example, rolling with the paddle in the crook of your elbow will help if you are putting too much pressure on your sweep hand, since you no longer have the sweep hand in this roll. The aft finishing roll variations will be covered in our second DVD, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you keep practicing your standard roll and try capsizing in different ways. And don't leave it too long before learning one of the forward finishing rolls.
After you have your standard roll on both sides, don't forget that there's a whole nother category that you should be exploring, the forward finishing rolls. If you practice aft finishing too much exclusively, your reptilian brain and your muscle memory will take over, making those forward finishing rolls much harder to learn.